Hello, my liberty lovers. My name is Martha Bueno, and this is Latin Libertarians. Today is November 3rd. Can you believe we're already in November? Where has the time gone? It's like we just started the year, or so it feels like. As always, I am here with my co-host and good friend, Mr. Zach Foster. Hello, my dear. How are you today?
I am doing very well. Pretty excited after some of the news that we got last night. Although I kind of feel called out just by how a certain group of people really outclassed a lot of state parties. Uh, I ain't even mad about that. I'm acknowledging right now. Right now, there are a number of people who are the goats right now, and
They are. I have
they
to
earn the
say,
respect. They
there
earn the
has been a
respect.
rivalry between Florida and Pennsylvania for years. Back when Marcos Marias was our chair, there was definitely a rivalry, and Florida was neck and neck with PA. And I remember at the convention, we were all like, no, we're going to win. No, we're going to win. You know what? Hats off to Pennsylvania. They have officially won. Pennsylvania has kicked some major booty, and I am so proud that they are part of this party because they are definitely making things happen. So we don't know the numbers yet, but they've definitely gotten over 100 libertarians.
They're claiming over
Way
100.
elected.
I am definitely looking forward to seeing that list so that I can share it super gloatingly. You guys already know that we do a lot of things in Spanish, a lot of libertarian activism in Spanish. And just like there's a lot of folks in this country who are not going to give the LP the time of day until they start seeing something impressive, there's a lot of libertarians in Latin America who feel like the American LP is not performed up to their standards. But I told just two people about the numbers that Pennsylvania was reporting last night. They were blown away. They were blown away. All the old haterade, it's like it never happened.
You know, and shout out to Spike Cohen too, who went on Kennedy tonight and said the same, said something to that effect, but basically congratulated Pennsylvania live on Fox News. Let's let America know. Guess what? We are winning. It might not be Senate races, it might not be these huge races, but we need to start winning. And people need to see us. Need to see that the sky's not going to fall because libertarians now are in some office. I think that's important. So congratulations again. I am super excited for them. And special shout out to Ashley Shade in Massachusetts for winning. Um, just I think she's awesome. And I think it's amazing that libertarians are winning. Come on, guys, a round of applause for ourselves. Anyways, tonight we have a great show. We're going to talk about something that Zach loves to talk about. What are we going to talk about, Zach?
Governments infiltrating libertarian movements here and around the world.
I have to say that when you first told me about the Libertarian Party being infiltrated or us being a target, I might not have believed you originally, Zach. I might not have believed you. And as we've gone further and further into this thing called, I don't even know what we're doing, activism, being political, I've seen it. I've seen it in live and living color, and it's amazing to watch. So we're going to spell it out for people. We're going to talk about it. We're going to show them with a little bit of evidence what we can gather to prove our point. But it is amazing. People are watching us. So don't forget, you guys have power. Everybody out there watching, you do have power. People do care about us and what we've been doing.
So, because we love to bash so much on other governments, which, by the way, is not the same thing as sending the 187th Airborne Division to go invade and intervene in your country. Yeah, we call spades a spade, but because we bash on other governments so often, we got to keep things fair and we got to start local. So, this little snippet that we're going to start this bit off with comes from this very large tome called The Complete Libertarian Forum, Volume 1, published by the Mises Institute, which was Rothbard's libertarian movement newsletter slash essay gallery slash gossip rag. There's an
I just
article.
want to point out that you have this book like on your bookshelves. Like this is how big of a nerd you are, and I love you. I love
both
you.
volumes. Both volumes.
Huh?
I said both volumes. This is just volume 1.
Dear Lord, everyone watching, let's just like realize right now, this is literally what Zach reads.
Well, this is one of the things that Zach reads, but there's an article from 1969. Excuse me. Hey, load up. Doggy, stop barking at the statists, all right? We're trying to educate them. Sorry about that. Anyway, he says in 1969 in an article called The Movement Grows, he's talking about a libertarian meeting where there was almost 70 people there and what an amazing event that was. But also, he got confirmation. Let's see here. When the libertarian scholar and activist Leonard P. Liggio spoke on the libertarian nature of the New Left less than 24 hours after the end of this harmless meeting, we heard from unimpeachable sources of someone who read the report in sextuplets of a cop spy at the meeting, the other carbon copies going to other police organizations. And yet, countless libertarian conservatives still revere and identify with the Polizei. It seems there were SDS members there at the forum meeting, and that many SDS people are tailed wherever they go by some form of undercover cop. So looks like the SDS got Rothbard. Well, SDS folks who are trying to work with libertarians against the state in general got some police infiltration because city police, state police, and definitely federal agencies were trying to infiltrate a lot of organizations back in the 1960s. Y'all check out Judas and the Black Messiah based on a true story, but that's where we start off. So we know since at least 1969, if we are not the targets of COINTELPRO, then different police agencies have at least been concerned about us and our different rhetoric. So that was the first example of governments trying to infiltrate libertarian movements, and that was from 1969.
So we weren't even a party then, because we weren't a
Correct. This was
party
before the
until
Libertarian Party was a party, but the main people who were going to go on and form our party were at different points being spied on by law enforcement organizations.
quick break before us continuing with this. I apologize, guys. I didn't mean to insult nerds. I too sometimes am quite a nerd myself, especially amongst other. It is not a negative. I do not mean that as a negative.
Oh,
You're
you're a nerd
right,
yourself.
Shelley. It is not a
I don't
negative.
know. I don't know. Just own the haterade because right now this is reminding me of like all these different folks. When we're like within a couple of weeks of an election and we have a really popular libertarian candidate, all these dudes who used to be against us come out of the woodworks, basically smiling like Willem Dafoe, talking about, I'm quite the libertarian myself.
Being a
Now we got
libertarian
Mark
is
coming out,
cool.
I'm quite the nerd myself.
We're making it cool, Zach. We're making it cool. What can we say?
We are making it cool. But as far as governments infiltrating libertarian movements, we are going to fast forward and we're going to take a jump down to Cuba, although this still does have things to do with the United States. Can you pull up that Facebook profile from the WhatsApp links? We're going to give it just a moment. So this next story is something that happened to some folks that you know and hopefully care about. You know that different American libertarians have been involved in trying to assist the Cuban libertarians since that movement was born 5 years ago. The photograph you're looking at is a photograph of a real person, but it's from a fake Facebook profile. Obviously, the profile exists, but what I'm saying is the people operating that Facebook profile are not the man in that photograph. The man in that photograph is a Cuban doctor by the name of Leonel Quindelan. It's the Hispanic version of Lionel. And he is a doctor that served in different Cuban medical missions abroad, including at least Algeria, as far as I'm aware of. This is special because, what's it, the end of 2021? Yeah, so 3.5 years ago, I was first contacted by this profile. We know now it was Cuban state security, which is the secret police, the political police. I was personally contacted by this profile, and the guy was playing up this identity. The state security was playing up this identity of one of their country's doctors that they had stolen, telling me about, hey, Zach, how are you doing? I've seen you making a lot of publications. I'm kind of confused, but I have more questions. What is this libertarianism? And because I'd been talking with a number of Cubans online whenever they could manage to connect at different times, I was telling him about libertarianism. And he said, this makes a lot of sense. I think I am a libertarian. And one of the ways that they tried to honeypot us didn't use any attractive people that they tried to get into our beds to get information out of us. No, they used the next thing that's attractive. I want to join the movement of Cuban libertarians. I want to escape. I don't want to serve this communist government anymore. They haven't even paid me or the other doctors in 4 months. Myself and 3 other doctors want to escape from Algeria. We need help. Please help us. I want to be free, and I want to be a libertarian, and I want to help my country be free. So me, being just a year into the Cuban libertarianism and still learning about how that country and the repression and the infiltration works, I gotta admit, folks, in my level of inexperience at the time, I got hooked like a trout. I got hooked like a freaking trout. And then they started asking for a little bit of money so that supposedly they could get these people out. Now, it's not just like some guy contacted me on the internet and then I told him everything he wanted to know, and then we started sending them money on Western Union. No, this is where they fooled us. I had voice calls, but I could never get a video call allegedly because of the connection. Well, in rural Algeria, I am willing to bet that the internet connection probably sucks too much for a phone call. We had a few audio calls, but also he had Dr. Kindelan, the real Dr. Kindelan's ID cards. He had photos of the current ID cards for the other doctors whose identities that they stole, pretending that 4 people were trying to escape. He had transcripts. He could tell me where every single doctor on that team went to medical school. And the list goes on, all kinds of verifiable information that theoretically you could not get unless you are the actual person. I'm surprised these guys don't hack more American bank accounts with the expert level that they're able to get people's data. But of course, it's a totalitarian government. The real Dr. Kindelan is a public servant, so of course they had his data. After we sent them a couple of $100s, that's when they started getting sloppy, real sloppy, and then we started noticing that things weren't making sense. And then finally, on the day that some people were supposed to show up, in Morocco, one of the libertarians in the nascent libertarian movement in Morocco that Marissa Hamilton was there when they were helped founding. One of those folks was in our little underground railroad network. He does not live in that country anymore, thank God, but because we got infiltrated by state security, the safety of that one Moroccan individual was compromised. Now, this is where things get real interesting. The people pretending to be Dr. Kindelan were telling me things like, you should meet this other doctor, Carlos Ramirez. He's a good friend of mine. We used to serve together in our first missions. He's a great guy, and I know that he would agree with this. And then the guy just would not leave it alone. Like every day, multiple times a day, have you talked to Dr. Ramirez? Have you talked to Dr. Ramirez? Have you talked to Dr. Ramirez? So eventually, I went and independently found out who this Dr. Ramirez guy is, and I contacted him. And until he saw a video of me speaking where he could see my face and hear my gringo accent speaking Spanish, not until then did he get comfortable. I would not have talked to Dr. Ramirez unless this guy had specifically kept trying to include Dr. Ramirez in whatever it was that they were trying to find out. I talked to Dr. Ramirez. He tells me, stop talking to that guy. It's not the real Leo. I know him. He is apolitical. He doesn't care about any of this libertarian stuff, just like he doesn't care about any of the communism stuff. He would never be involved in this. Stop talking to them. It's state security. So my correspondence with Dr. Ramirez has been very limited because he's not a member of the movement. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Why were they trying to discredit Dr. Ramirez? Because back in 2013, when Dr. Ramirez was working in the Cuban medical mission in Venezuela, he and many, many other doctors working there were used to basically bully people into voting for Maduro's party to the extent that they would go knocking door to door on people's houses because they would go to the neighborhood. It wasn't just people coming to their clinic. So they would deliver a prescription and then talk to the person to whom they're delivering the prescription. Hey, we know that you need this blood pressure medication, or we know that you need your diabetes meds, your insulin, your heart pills, whatever it is. We're really going to need you to show up and vote for the United Socialist Party in the next election, because remember, it is that government. That's the reason why we're here, to give you free medical care. So you should really go vote for the United Socialist Party. And then when people would not vote for the United Socialist Party, they would show up to the clinic for the appointment that they already had scheduled. Oh, I'm sorry, this appointment was canceled. It seems to have been deleted for some reason. We don't know why. we'd be more than happy to schedule you for another medical appointment, but you're going to have to get in the back of the line. Things like that. Anyway, Dr. Ramirez talked to the New York Times. He talked to the New York Times months before state security tried infiltrating the Cuban LP through talking to us. And then I saw the report in the New York Times where he and a number of other doctors said everything. Eventually, Dr. Ramirez, by the way, he deserted. He and a number of other doctors decided, if I cannot be a doctor in this country, then I might as well just be a human being in the world. So they deserted. Dr. Ramirez eventually ended up in another country in Latin America. He is one of a handful of deserted Cuban doctors who is still practicing medicine. The overwhelming majority of doctors who desert from the Cuban medical missions, they will work as cooks, janitors, laborers, menial jobs, entry-level jobs.
Plenty of doctors in this country, plenty of Latin American doctors in America not able to practice, which is, it's crazy. It's crazy that in the time of a pandemic, doctors can't practice their craft. But anyways, I digress. Go on, Zach. My apologies.
Yeah, so I eventually broke contact with that account, but that same account, pretending to be Dr. Kindelan, they sent me a message a few weeks ago on Instagram. Now, I got deleted from Facebook. All my Facebook accounts got deleted. That time, it was the Maduro regime, one of their intelligence units. You know how they do. They get all the bots to flag your posts at the same time, and then the algorithm shuts you down. But even after getting me deleted from Facebook, Cuban Intelligence is still trying to contact me on Instagram. And how dumb do they think we are? Like, bro, they're using the same false identity, which tells me it's got to be different agents doing this project, because it's been over 3 years now. People get stationed in one place, then they get another assignment. That's how it works with a lot of police and military agencies. So it can't be the same person. The lack of continuity in the narrative. And also Dr. Ramirez telling us, stop talking to those guys. It's state security. We know that the Cuban government has tried to infiltrate the Cuban libertarians through their American libertarian supporters. And it wasn't just me that they've been hitting up. They also spammed Dr. Kyle Varner a lot on social media, trying to get him roped into the same thing. But obviously, I advised him of what was going on. So that is one other chain of events, many of governments trying to infiltrate the libertarian.
What's up next? Where else are we going for government infiltration of the LP?
Ooh, okay, we're gonna jump to the year 2019. So from 2018 to 2019, back in the spring of 2019, there was a little bit of a brouhaha in Washington, D.C., because after the president at the time, number 45, recognized Juan Guaido's government, Maduro's government concocted a plan to not give up the embassy and also cause as much embarrassment to the United States as possible. So under one of Maduro's vice presidents, who at the time was the foreign minister, our version of Secretary of State, Jorge Ariaza organized a group to defend, quote unquote, defend. They were invaders, but in their opinion, they were defending, called the Embassy Protection Collective. One of the people who showed up to the Venezuelan embassy, basically to create propaganda for them, was somebody who he passes himself off as a journalist, and other people seem to think that he is a journalist. I don't see him as a journalist, though. His name is Alexander Rubinstein, and he blogs for his news website, Mint Press News. He showed up to the embassy originally just as a journalist covering the Embassy Protection Collective. The word collective in this context is super important because in the Venezuelan context, a collective is specifically a pro-government paramilitary group. This is a photo of Mr. Rubinstein. And if production could go to the next photo of Mr. Rubinstein in the embassy, that would be helpful. Anyway, he showed up as just a reporter and ended up actually the Embassy Protection Collective and sticking around. That's him on the left. And he was one of the last 10 people. He wasn't one of the 4 that Capitol Police physically dragged out of the building, but he was one of the last 10 of those people. I cannot name my source, but I do have it on impeccable authority. Impeccable authority. How impeccable, I would trust this individual with my children and my children's homework assignments because he knows what he's talking about. He told me I have been a guest in Mr. Rubenstein's home. I can confirm to you that he is not only a Marxist-Leninist, he is also a tanky. What is a tanky? That is a slang term for Stalinists or people who choose to export Marxist revolution with military force. Yeah, exactly. So he went there, showed up as a journalist, ended up joining this paramilitary group that was invading the Venezuelan embassy for Maduro. Now, all you constitutionalists were still not getting into intervention. Remember, the ability to recognize foreign governments diplomatically remains exclusively with the President of the United States. Though I did not vote for that President of the United States, the President at the time recognized Juan Guaido. Sorry, that building is his embassy. Even though today I absolutely despise Juan Guaido, that was his embassy. Now, could we please go to a certain website that has published some of Mr. Rubenstein's articles? Everybody just chill, all right? It's not going to be easy for some people to process, but as soon as
Yes,
it's up on the
sir.
screen, you will understand.
Oh, people definitely are not going to like this one, Zach.
Just hang
Why?
tight.
Why do you make me do this?
Just hang
Seriously,
tight.
do
Hang
you
tight, you
want
guys.
people to
Bear with
hate
me.
us?
No, I don't want people to hate us, but I figure people deserve to know the truth. And since this episode is about agents of different governments trying to infiltrate our movement,
I
scroll
swear,
down.
guys, I
Scroll
love
down.
him as much as everyone else does.
And so do I. Let me qualify that. I went to Iowa in 2012 with the Ron Paul campaign. I was trying very hard to make that man the next president of the United States. Back in the year 2012, I was bitterly disappointed when he did not get the nomination. I remember how the GOP did him dirty at the 2012 convention. I remember how people in his own campaign, members of his family that he trusted, did him dirty. And obviously, I still feel very emotional about these torpedo attacks to undermine a wonderful person that so many of us have love for. I still see Ron Paul as a mentor, and if it was not for my outrage at how the GOP treated Ron Paul back in 2012, I probably would not have ended up in the Libertarian Party. That said, Ron Paul the man and the people that he sometimes has around him who try to use his name and his brand to make money are different. There is an article that I would recommend some of you guys look up on Google. It's called the Ron Paul Institute for Putin's Priorities. And what's written in that article is going to be worrying. Now, what do we have here? We have articles written by Mr. Alexander Rubinstein, published on the website of the Ron Paul Institute. And you know who was the most mad out of everybody? Venezuelan Ron Paul supporters. Venezuelans who have read The Revolution and The Fed, translations of different versions of his texts that the different Spanish-speaking Mises Institutes from Spain to Peru have published, including Mises Institute Venezuela. The Venezuelan Ron Paulers were absolutely livid that Ron Paul's Institute would be publishing, I'm sorry, communist propaganda, tanky propaganda, talking about how U.S. sanctions have killed over 40,000 Venezuelans as of the spring of 2019. I'm sorry, that's just not true. The United States government is responsible for 500,000 deaths of Iraqi children in the 90s, and as an American, I'm ashamed of that. I am ashamed of that. There's no taking that back. But Venezuela, I'm sorry, guys, that is a military invasion by the Cuban army. And here we have this literal communist propaganda published by the institute, which has the name of somebody that I still care about and whom I will always consider myself to be one of his political disciples, even if I've gone two corners of libertarianism that he was not ready to go. And I'm not sure if folks in the Ron Paul Institute know that this guy's a tanky. I'm not sure if folks from the Ron Paul Institute ever put two and two together that Rubenstein was part of the Embassy Protection Collective. But it's there, folks, and it's extremely disappointing to me, and it is extremely disappointing to the Venezuelan students of Ron Paul, who still want to have a conference with Daniel McAdams, by the way. The Venezuelan Ron Paulers have tried reaching out. We've had folks from the Mises Caucus try to extend that olive branch on our behalf. Mike Heiss, God bless him, he has tried to extend that olive branch multiple times. And whoever is running that show in the Ron Paul Institute wants nothing to do with them. And he is convinced that every Venezuelan Ron Pauler in Venezuela is a CIA plant. And that is just terribly unfair. It's a terribly unfair way to just dismiss people.
So is he just going to keep posting on the Ron Paul Institute? Is this just going to keep happening? What's the deal? Have we heard anything on this? Is this just going to keep happening?
The last time I heard from the individual who runs that institute, he got totally banned from Twitter. So I don't even see what the guy's posting. He's banned from Twitter. I'm banned from Facebook. Neither one of us probably has any idea of what the other is saying or doing. But what you guys just saw on the screen speaks for itself. I will always consider myself a disciple of Ron Paul. Although, man, him not, or whoever he has hiring people and vetting people, not vetting everybody, it's been a problem for a while. It's not necessarily stuff that he does, but for example, the newsletters, guys, in hindsight, I feel like such an idiot trying to come up with a good sounding justification for every time a black Republican in Iowa wanted to talk to me specifically about the newsletters. I still remember the embarrassment and the sense of shame that I felt. I did not believe at the time that those views were written by Ron Paul or representative of what he actually thinks. And I still don't believe that they're representative of what he actually thinks. But one thing that is for sure is he or whoever is hiring people seems to have trouble vetting people, because before, what's going on with the Institute and the little avenue of infiltration to publish Cuban communist and Venezuelan communist propaganda, there was the stuff about the newsletter. There were the people from the 2012 campaign that got sentenced in federal courts in 2015. The thing that Jesse Benton got sentenced for, he was caught on video trying to do again in 2016. So all that stuff speaks for itself.
Do you want to move on to more Venezuela?
I'm sorry, the police state was buzzing me right now. Like, they were flying really low over my house. I did not hear what you just said.
I said, are we now moving on to more Venezuela?
Let's move on to the last one, but we'll make that one quick because we got some exciting stuff that we want to talk about.
All right. What are we moving on to?
Let's go to the fake Libertarian Party of Venezuela.
Ooh.
Let's go to start with the black and white photo, the one with the twins.
Twins. I got a black and white photo, but I don't know.
Can you go to the one of Marcelo Rondon? If you guys just bear with us,
this
is
it?
Some other stuff that's epic. All right, cool. So one of those two twins in that photo is named Gabriel Nava. He is running for a mayor, either a mayorship or a parliamentary position in the Venezuelan state of Monagas, under the ticket of the Libertarian Party of Venezuela. Folks, there is no real thing called the Libertarian Party of Venezuela. There is an organization inscribed in Maduro's regime as the Libertarian Party of Venezuela, but every time we talk about a Venezuelan libertarian on this show, we're not talking about this quote-unquote LP Venezuela. The organization, the real libertarian organization, the one that I've been working with for 5 years now, is called Movimiento Libertario, the Libertarian Movement of Venezuela. They are a political organization, but they're not a political party. I asked them, why aren't you a political party? They said there's no use making a political party and running candidates when all the elections are so hilariously and laughably fraudulent. Anyway, the regime made a Libertarian Party of Venezuela. One of the people running for office, who's also on the National Executive Committee, is one of those two brothers, the Nava brothers. This screenshot is from an intelligence report that did a deep dig on these guys. And they found Mr. Nava's YouTube show from 2013. And who are the sponsors running ads on his YouTube shows? Candidates from the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. Now, can we go to the photo of Marcelo Rondon, the guy in the blue suit with the logo behind them, trying to look all impressive. So one
We
of the
can.
guys
I was
is
actually looking for the time, the chat when the Venezuelan party tried to contact me, but I don't seem to find it too.
Oh yeah, these folks, these fake libertarians that the regime set up in this fake LP, they've tried to reach out to me. They've tried to reach out to Martha. They've tried to reach out to Martha like while I was sitting next to her. Now the guy in that photo is another member of the National Executive Committee of the fake Maduro regime Libertarian Party of Venezuela. His name is Marcelo Rondon. He came out of nowhere. He's one of the everybody on this executive committee just came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're on the executive committee of this brand new Libertarian Party of Venezuela. We found this guy. We found this guy. We did a deep dig on him. Turns out Mr. Rondon, who is part of the National Executive Committee of the fake LP, was a candidate for office for Maduro's party back in 2013. Was a candidate for office in Maduro's party back in 2013. Now, there are three main libertarian and libertarian-ish organizations in Venezuela. One is Libertarian Movement, not party, movement. The other is Mises Institute Venezuela. That's an academic think tank. And the other one is a political party called Vente Venezuela, which is like, it's conservatarian. Like if the Republican Liberty Caucus was a separate political party from the GOP, that's Vente Venezuela. I've been working with all three of those organizations for almost 5 years now. Nobody has ever heard of any of these people. And remember, the libertarians have traveled because it started off as a very small movement and then it grew. But like capital L libertarians in Venezuela, I would put that number at still under 2,000. Everybody knows each other. Nobody of the hundreds of people that I've spoken to from these organizations, nobody has ever heard of these people. Also, at the same time that the Maduro regime kidnapped all the other opposition political parties, last year is when this political party was officially launched. When I say they kidnapped them, I mean like uh, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, or yeah, like if Joe Biden had the entire Republican National Committee arrested, next thing you know, you see Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC sitting at a table going, "Yeah, we're the new Republican National Committee. We're the GOP." That is literally what the regime did to all the opposition parties. So at the same time that they launched all these new opposition parties is when this LP Venezuela comes up. And what do? They try to hit me up for money. They
And they
try to
try
hit
to
me up
hit
for money.
us both up. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
they tried to hit
pretty
both of
sure
us
they,
up.
yeah, they
Yeah,
did
and
just
then
didn't get very
we looked
far.
into who these people are, and we found out every one of these guys has a paper trail as a member of Maduro's party. It's
But
a
we're not
fake
the only ones,
Libertarian
Zach.
party. Now, why would
I
they have
do
done that?
I do
Why do
want
you
to
think they
throw
would have
out
done that?
there that we're not the only ones that are getting targeted, though.
That's
And
true.
there are people, big named people in the libertarian movement that have been targeted. People like that maybe Americans don't know as well, but somebody like Javier Milei has been targeted as well. If people are aware, in Argentina, he's been targeted by this group as well. We
Yeah.
were
Now,
able
who
to.
is Javier Milei? The best one sentence description: Latino Tom Woods.
He is amazing. I love him. He's great. He's making liberty sexy in Argentina. He's a great, and he's not a great looking dude, I guess. I don't know. He's like the Harry Potter. I don't know, whatever. Not important. People call him like Harry Potter of Argentina. But the point that I was trying to make is he was contacted by the Venezuelan group as well. And Zach was able to foil that plan a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, the party still exists. So in the fake elections that the Maduro regime does this November, a Libertarian Party, an organization calling itself the Libertarian Party of Venezuela, will appear on the ballot. But again, they're not the real libertarians. They are the fake libertarians. These people have a provable paper trail for militancy and activism inside of Maduro's party. Yes, sorry guys, it's not going to work. They tried. Now, real quick, why would they have done this? Because of those three libertarian or libertarian-ish organizations, Vente Venezuela is a political party. And if LP Venezuela exists, and Venta Venezuela. They're not going to these elections, but they will go to future elections probably. Probably. Then fake LP Venezuela splits the classical liberal and libertarian vote. The populations are minuscule, but they have been able to get enough support for libertarianism or conservatarianism to actually get a few people into the National Assembly under the Venta Venezuela party. So that is the purpose of why the regime would make a fake libertarian party, to split the classical liberal vote, so that even in their fake elections, their parties, which they limit opposition against amongst Chavismo and Democratic Chavismo, they do even better.
And this isn't even to say the people who run as libertarians, now that we're making libertarian be cool again, this is all on top of people who are now going to start running as libertarians, who for whatever reason can't run under the party that they want to. Here in Miami, there's a local candidate. I won't name names, but there is a local candidate who
name names. He's a public figure.
Nah, it's fine. I don't need to create enemies. However, there is a candidate that is running for commission in a different race, not directly against me, who is a very well-known Democrat. So much so that she kicked me out of a Cuban group because I was not a Democrat. Figure that. And now she's running for commissioner. Again, very easy to find. There's very few women in these commission races. I'm one of them. She's the other one. And she's now calling herself a libertarian. So, people don't realize how much libertarians have changed the political sphere. Now it's not political suicide to call yourself a libertarian. As a matter of fact, when you can't call yourself a Democrat anymore, seems to be the cool thing to call yourself. So anyways, there's infiltration of all kinds in this party. Volume, sir.
Sorry about that. Resuming, we went over American police trying to infiltrate the nascent American libertarian movement in 1969. We went to the Cuban state security trying to infiltrate both the Cuban and the American LP in one operation. We went to a very unfortunate series of events involving the institute of a certain individual that we know and love, whom I still care about deeply. And it makes me feel bad that people take advantage of him and his brand. We went over fake LP of Venezuela, which the Maduro regime made. And we don't have time, but if you guys want to go and read that article, Ron Paul's Institute for Putin's Priorities, read it. Don't just have an emotional reaction. Follow up on some of the claims. Do research on the claims that this article makes, and then you guys decide for yourselves. But folks from that institute, folks from Mises Venezuela are still willing to talk to you guys and try to come up with some kind of synthesis, because they love Dr. Paul too. They love Dr. Paul too. And it is not fair that the executive director just writes them all off as CIA plans.
That's another thing. CIA plans is something that we get called a lot as libertarians. The movement in Cuba right now is being called CIA plants. Siley from Amarillo y Medio, the group that is planning the protest or the face of the protest, Archipelago, they're all being called CIA plans. CIA plan is just the easy go-to when you don't want people to even think about you. You get written off if you're a CIA plant. So that's a real tactic that they use. It's unfortunate that the Ron Paul Institute is using it as well. But
it happens. But if we are convinced of the rightness of the work that we're doing, I mean, hell, what you and I and some of our other friends, we have now kept hundreds of people alive between Cuba and Venezuela, and it's also made them take a serious second look at our ideas if they didn't agree with our ideas to begin with. I will always be proud of the lives that you and I and all of our many wonderful volunteers are responsible for saving. I will never be sorry about that. Also,
we're gonna keep doing it, Zach.
Yeah, I didn't send the Marines to any country. So what do you guys talk about in intervening? I have not had political candidates assassinated. I have not done bombings in other countries. I have not sent the Marines to invade anybody. Sorry, I'm not intervening. It's not intervention to call a spade a spade.
This is true. Intervening requires a little more than just talking and blocking somebody from getting a hold of people in our party. There's also all sorts of other type of infiltration. I mean, we just talked about one type, but there's other kinds. There are political activists that are very well known that claim to be for one thing and they're really not. And, you know, there's just a lot of ways that people can become infiltrated in a party, in a movement. And, you know, we hear rumors of it all the time in our party. So guys, keep eyes and ears open. And if something just seems off, research it or call Zach. Zach's really good at this. I just recommend calling Zach. You know
research
what?
it.
Just
Please
call
research
Zach.
it before you call Zach. Oh my gosh. Which, by the way, Paul, wherever you are, there is a member of the LibSocs who had a long conversation back with me in 2019, and he had a lot of questions, and we ended up talking on the phone for almost 5 hours uninterrupted, and the level of intellectual honesty and willingness to just receive information, but overall the lack of emotional reaction and the intellectual honesty. Paul, wherever you are, my hat is off to you, brother. Thank you. Seriously, I still remember that.
Awesome. And with that, we conclude tonight's episode, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for sticking it out with us for the last 44 minutes. And we will be back next Wednesday with another show. Next week, Wednesday, we're going to be talking about Cuba. I think it seems
And next week, we're also going to briefly talk about why the current ambassador of Venezuela in the United States is really, 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 really pissed off at me.
Ooh, I like this one. We need
and
to.
it has something to do with USAID and 1.4 billion of y'all's tax dollars. So next week.
Oh, you mean those tax dollars that were missing? Oh my God, I love.
Yes, the missing tax
government
dollars
waste.
that nobody knows where it went. Yes, exactly. So
Government
the
waste. That's
ambassador
where
of
it went.
Venezuela is super pissed off at me, and next week you will find out why.
The United States is going to investigate itself and let y'all know that we did nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Anyways, good night, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Next week, we got a whole new show for y'all. Follow us, please like and share, and follow us on social media. Bueno for Miami on all of them. Zach, you've got the weird names you can sound off.
Follow me on Instagram, Libertario del Norte.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.